Okay, I'm having a little problem here what I had before that I wanted to share with you, and now suddenly it doesn't show up the screen that I want to share with you. So let me see what's up here, why it doesn't work. Just a second. I'm closing down some problems. I hope that will solve the problem here. Get back to Zoom. Sharing again. There it is. Good, so now you see my screen, and this and this. This one, yeah. So I told you this is about creating a structure that will help us also to change the behavior in a way that becomes more cooperative. So I've been working for now with it for 25 years, and my conclusion is that what Sociocracy does is help us as people to move to boost our cooperation, to move to a next higher level of cooperating. We do a lot of cooperating, but we see also now with this crisis that there is still a lot of, I would say, pieces missing, links missing in our cooperation, and Sociocracy can help us to improve us to cooperate. And the question is, so if you look at organizations that use this method, you see certain results. You see they have higher problem-solving capacity because more people are involved in the making of decisions. So more information is flowing into the decision-making. People can correct decisions. So you get also better quality of decisions, and people have also to take more into account different views and different information that are relevant to the decision-making. You get a higher commitment to decision because it offers a lot of room for participative decision making. Also, when you delegate decision making, you can delegate a lot of decision making, but it is done in a participative way. So people are committed to the fact that they delegate tasks to other people. So you get also then a better commitment to the decisions made in the participative way, but also in the decision made by the people that got this mandate to decide for others, because people are committed to the fact that these people are mandated. What you see also, and that's not especially what Sociocracy was made for, but that's a kind of side benefit, is that you see that the meetings become more effective, because a lot of meetings nowadays are either they are like a radio station, so it's the leadership giving you information and people sharing information, but not about making decisions. It's not about alignment. Or you get a lot of participation, but in the end, it's unclear what is the decision, or a majority is in favor of the decision and a minority is not in favor. Or you get a lot of discussion on details. And here with Sociocracy, we focus on the policy. So the boundaries that, the policy boundaries that for us is relevant, and all the details we can delegate to people. So this makes them effective, and the fact that what we agree is also consented by all the people that are there. So they have to personally agree with the decision making. What you also see in organizations using Sociocracy is that it improves self-organization, because people get more responsibility for their own domain, and also more power to organize their own domain, so they're part of the organization. And so that's why you also see this empowerment. So people get tools, but also the power to organize themselves. And how this will not lead to anarchy, I can show you later. So if you look at Sociocracy, and maybe I'm not sure how much you already know. Maybe you already know there are 4 basic rules. These are the design rules for constructing these sociocratic organizations. And what we do, we add it to existing organizations. So you have to change nothing in your existing organization, but you add sociocracy to it, which means you have a kind of organization now in which you make decisions and you add sociocracy for the policy making. And how this is done, I will show you later. And so these 4 rules: consent principle, which means that the consent governs the decision making. The organization is made up of circles, so everybody in the organization is part of a circle where he also can participate in the policy decision making. The levels, we still have levels in an organization, so there can still be a hierarchy, but these hierarchies are, these levels are double linked so that each level has a say in the next higher level, and vice versa. So they can mutually influence one another, and they are equivalent. So there becomes an equivalent hierarchy of circles or of management layers, organizational layers. And then the last one, it's the open election. So people are chosen for their function with consent. So you get leadership or delegates or other people appointed for jobs in your circle, in your team, that also have the consent of the people that have to work with them. And this is also a good way to correct one another if necessary. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the why. So, okay, 4 basic rules, fine. But why these rules? So that it is not just a trick that we do. There's a lot of reasoning behind the trick. Yeah? So behind the toolkit, you could say. And I find important to understand, otherwise we are just doing tricks but not understanding. And so we also don't understand when we're doing it wrongly or rightly. So one of the foundations is the scientific fact that our life and our living together is consists of dynamic processes, which are processes that can reach their goal with the help of unpredictable factors. So here you see a person driving a bike, wanted to go from A to B, and he is using a bike who can change unpredictably. He has a body which can change unpredictably. He's driving on a road which can change unpredictably because people can move, cross the road, or there can be potholes, or there can be traffic jams. There's weather that can change unpredictably. So there are all kinds of factors which the cyclist needs to get from A to B. He needs this cycle, he needs the cycle path. He needs the oxygen in the air, so but it's all unpredictable. And so there are many other factors that I have not mentioned that makes this an unpredictable process that can change unpredictably. And that's not only for riding a bike, but also this webinar is also an unpredictable process. I was disturbed by the fact that I could not share my screen with you, which was for me something that I had not predicted. Otherwise, I would have done differently. So, and there are many factors that can disturb this process, but still, in many cases, we achieve our goal, even with these unpredictable factors. And that is because if you look at the bicycle, you make use of the circle process of leading, doing, measuring. And this was also scientifically tested by Norbert Wiener, which was a mathematician. And originally it was, he did this because they wanted to drop the bombs in World War II better. They wanted them because they were dropping bombs, but were not very effective because they were most of the time not where they should land. And so there was a lot of theory around how can we make this unpredictable process better to steer. So it was a very, we could say, bad situation from which this useful idea came of the circle process. So if you are steering your bike, you need a part in you that leads the process, which is, in this case, is your brain. Your brain is leading, giving assignments to the legs and to the arms to steer or to brake or to put more energy in it and that we go faster. And you have the senses, and that will measure, that will collect information. Are people crossing the road? What's the effect of all our actions? And this information is fed into the brain, and the brain can use this to change the direction, to give other assignments to the arms and the legs. So you have the leading part, the brain part, you have the doing part, in this case are the legs and the arms, and you have the measuring part, which are the senses. And if any of these parts in the circle process gets disturbed, So for example, if we take a lot of alcohol because we want to party, that's no problem for the legs, that's no problem for the eyes, but it's a big problem for the brain because it will result in the fact that it can take in information very, very slowly, process information very, very slowly. And so before he will come up with an assignment, then we already bumped into the people crossing the road or a tree or whatever. And that's the same for the legs. If you are going too fast for too long, then you get trouble with your muscles, you get exhaustion, and you can maybe have an injury on your muscles, and so the process will fall down. And it's the same with the eyes. If you put on a cap and you cannot see very well from the left to the right, then you miss a lot of information. So in order to achieve the common goal, we need that the three factors in the circle process, this leading, doing, measuring, all these tasks involved in these three aspects, three fields, that three functions, that they function well and that we take them into regard and that we respect their boundaries, their limits, their capacity. So we respect the limits of the muscles, we respect the limits of the brain, we respect the limits of our senses. Otherwise, we construct a circle process that does not work well and we will not achieve our common goal. And we all suffer from that, not only the brain or not only, but all the parts. So now we are going to a little bit more complex example. You're not on your bike alone, but you want to make a bike tour with more people. So you will have to attune not only within yourself, the leading, doing, and the measuring, but you will also have to attune amongst the people that are participating in this bike tour, because you will have to attune when will we have a pause, how fast will we go, where will we sleep, or what will the distance be that we will travel. And this is all things that have to be attuned, and it has to be acceptable for all the participants. Otherwise, we will not achieve the common goal. So you not only have your own process of steering your bike, but you also have the common process of steering the group. Yeah? And there we also have to attune to achieve the common goal of our bike tour. So what you see here now is that we have multiple circle processes. And even this is a very, I could say, very easy way to look at it, because in fact, in reality, it's far more complex because there are many complexes right now working in your body. So this can be very much more complex, but it's just a simple view of what it looks like. So you have your own process, you have sub-processes, and they are combined in an overall process if they have a common goal. And so you see also here a hierarchy. You have sub-processes of each of the cyclists, and you have an overall process. And if this bike tour is part of a larger bike tour where there are more groups on the way, and this is just one of the groups, you will have another circle process that combines all the different groups, and so on and so on. And every time you see this leading, doing, and measuring. So you get a hierarchy of semi-autonomous circle process. Semi-autonomous because you cannot do whatever you want. You are not completely free. If you want to be part of the bike tour, you have to attune with the others. You have to make sure that you are in line with the distance and with the pacing that we do. If you go too fast and other people cannot follow you, then you are no longer on a bike tour together. So you will have to attune your biking with the others. So and at the same time, you will have also to make your own decisions when to brake or when to when you speed up. So you have your own process, but it is semi-autonomous. It has to be attuned with the overall process. So you see there is self-organization in this. Self-organization meaning you have a responsibility for your part of this process, your own circle process, but it has to be attuned with that of the others. So it's semi-autonomous. And what we also see here, that each of the participants, but also if you look at the three functions, each of the three functions will have their own perspective at the common process. They will have their own information about their health or about the capacity to cycle. So you have a joint aim realization, but there are different informations, different criteria, different perspectives. And in order to achieve the goal, you have to attune all these different perspectives. And it's the same what we have in our organizations. So it requires that we are able to align these different perspectives. And this has consequences for the decision making. Because in order to do that, to see the whole of the elephant, we have to align all the different perspectives of the people that think they see a tree or think they see a snake because they are at one part of the elephant. And that's for all of us. All of us have our own reality because we can only see where we are or the information that we took in, and we have to puzzle it together to see the whole. And well, that has influence, that influences how we organize decision making. So things that you read now about distributed leadership or collective intelligence, this is things these are words that we use to say that we need the alignment of these different perspectives and this synthesis. And if you have systems like this with these are decision-making systems, and these are linear decision-making systems. On the left side, you see the leader making decisions for subordinates. On the right side, you see democratic decision-making, majority making decisions for the minority. These processes run the risk that you overlook important aspects of the information and important aspects of the process, which in the end will lead to the fact that you will not achieve your goal. But they also have good, there are also good sides of good things of each of these decision-making methods. So if you look, for example, at the autocratic method, and autocratic can be in disguise because a lot of self-organization is in essence also very autocratic. So then you tell people, now it's up to you to make your own decisions as long as you reach this and these goals. Well, that's not very self-organized. It's also very autocratic because somebody is telling you what goals to be achieved, but now you are free to choose your way to do it. So for example, in Agile, you have this distinction between the what and the how, and that's their way to solve this tension between self-organization and alignment. But it's in essence also very autocratic that somebody else makes a decision on the how, on the who, and then leaves up to you the how. But these are communicating, they influence one another. But they also have advantages. If you look at autocratic decision making, we use this a lot. Right now, I'm doing this. I make a lot of decisions for you, what I tell you and what I don't tell you. And the positive aspect of it is that it goes fast and that you can leave, you can delegate a lot to an expert. And so it makes you free to listen, to do your stuff. If I take a cab or if I take the train, then I delegate a lot of the steering of the train. I delegate to other people, and it makes me free to do to steer my process, to read the book or to work or whatever. So this is a positive aspect of this autocratic decision making. The bad aspect is that I'm very dependent on the person making the decision. And it could also lead that he makes decisions that I don't feel committed to, that I cannot fulfill, or that I find they have not taken into account my needs or the information I have. So you can get lack of commitment, and you can also get wrong decisions because, yeah, the leadership forgot or oversaw things. And that's the main part, we were not able to correct this. So you see this red dotted line. What's missing in this linear structure is the feedback, and that you have the possibility as a subordinate to correct the leadership if he makes mistakes. Well, you can tell now, but then the leadership will decide what to do with it, if you see it as a mistake or not. But there's not a formal procedure where you can really say, no, now stop, and now you also have to discuss with me whether or not we will do this. I also have a say in it. It's the same with the majority and the minority. It helps to get more people participate in the decision making. It also helps to get more ideas to align, because you need to achieve a majority decision, but you end up with a majority, and it can be a very large majority that don't like the decision and is not willing to implement it, and you get so it leads to a lot of polarization, because we're looking at the votes and we lose track of the content, but we're just looking for, oh, how can I stay in power and find enough votes that get done what I want to get done. And also here, what is lacking is this feedback, or this formal power to correct for the minority, to correct the majority, if necessary. So a Sociocratic solution to that is to say, okay, we want to hold on to the advantages. So we need these ways of decision making, and we are going to, we want to cherish them, and we want still to have them. But we have to add something that compensates for the negative aspects of, and that has to do with the policy, with the not having the capacity or the possibility to formally correct the decision making. And so that's why Sociocracy proposes to use the consent principle, which says no argued paramount objection governs decision making. It's not the same as consensus, because we don't ask the people, are you completely agreeing? It's possible that maybe you have another preference, but you can live with what is proposed. So that's the question. The question is not, is this what you want? The question is it okay enough? Good enough for now, safe enough to try? That's the question, more or less. Or are you willing or able to implement this decision? So it's no consensus. It's consent. It's also not a veto. It's not, if you have a paramount objection, then we stop the conversation, we will not do this, go over to another subject. No, it's a starting point of a new conversation. Then the question is, what exactly are your paramount objections? What exactly are your arguments? So your reasoning, can you give us information so that we understand? So that's the argued part, so that we understand what's making you say this is a paramount objection, so that we can work on it and find and looking for better options for solutions. So it's not just a flat no and then discussion stops. No, it's a paramount objection. Then you give your reasoning and we will look together with you for better ways. It's not without obligation. It's not say, oh yes, do so. I'm not really bought into the decision making, but if you want it, then go ahead. No, it also means that you are co-responsible for the decision making. So if you consent, you cannot say, yeah, but I thought I wanted something else. No, if you consent, you're also co-responsible for making it happen. Yeah? At least if you are involved in the execution or if you're asked to. It also means you cannot abstain. What you can do, you can delegate, but not abstain. Abstain in the sense from, oh, you can make the decision, but then I'm not responsible. So what you see sometimes in politics, that people then say, oh, abstain and you make the decision, but then it's your decision. No, you can say, I delegate it to you because I don't have time for it, or I think you are more an expert on it than it, or I trust you for it, but you cannot abstain. So you stay in this co-responsibility. And it governs decision-making, so it leaves room for all other ways of decision-making that we want to use. If you want to throw up a dice, or you want to make majority vote, or you want to look at the stars or whatever, as long as you consent to that, it's fine. You can delegate it to much power of decision-making to anybody, as long as the group that has responsibility agrees to that, so consents to that, then you can delegate a lot. And you can also change it. You can delegate me a lot of power now, but for the next session you can say, no, we want to limit it and we want to change it. That's fine, we can all do this with the consent. So this makes that you get the best of both worlds. You get on the left side, you get the consent decision making, and the consent decision making is about the policy, so the boundaries. And the execution of that policy is delegated to the execution. And that can be very fast because there you have people that get domains, mandates. Within these mandates, they can do their thing. So if we are going on a bike tour and we need somebody to organize for the food and to make arrangements with the hotels and everything, then we can delegate it. We can say, oh, this is your budget, this is the period, and it should be a 2-star hotel at least. So these are the boundaries that we consent upon, and now you are free to make any decision for us which is within this assignment. So he can go and look for the hotel, he can spend the money, he can choose the food, and so on and so on, as long as he takes into account the boundaries. So you see here is that we have a lot of, an important aspect of working with Sociocracy, or working in a team. I would say it's not only Sociocracy, but to say in your life, is that you can make the distinction between policy and execution. That you know as a team what we need as boundaries, in which everybody has to be involved and has to consent to. And what do we leave open is the freedom for the people within these boundaries to do in the execution their own thing with these boundaries. This is trying to finding a balance between regulations, boundaries, and freedom within these regulations. And a very important criteria for this is that boundaries should be set in such a way that it helps us to move faster in the execution, that we get rid of a lot of discussion in the execution with whether we should go right or left, or whether we should take this hotel or that hotel, or should be 2-star or 3-star, that a lot of this discussion is already done. These boundaries are set, and then people give the mandate to go for the hotels and choose the exact location and everything that has to do with it, and that they can make speed, and that we don't have to anytime this discussion, because this discussion we will have in the circle meeting, and then we set the boundaries, and then we can delegate. So this is a very simple explanation, but then a lot get delegated to the execution, and there we can make speed. So for example, I work with people in healthcare that are in birth care, and that you have several birth care organizations like hospitals, but also midwives, and you have gynecologists. They are all involved in this healthcare business, and they have to make policy on what they call protocols, at which BMI, so body mass, a woman has to see a gynecologist, so cannot stay with her midwife. In the Netherlands, we have independent midwives, but she has to be seen by a gynecologist because she is seen as a high risk person when she's giving birth. So they have to make a decision on that, so they don't have discussion all the time in the execution whether this woman should see a doctor or not, or whether she can stay with the midwife or not. So that's an example. Another example.
Pieter, about 5 minutes more.
Yeah, thank you. So what you have then is you get a circular hierarchy based on equivalence between levels. So you see here this executive organization. This is all execution. You see this board, external board, you see the CEO, you see managers, you see departments with department members. They all have their circles, their circle meetings. And this you have every 2 months, you have your circle meeting where you set your policy together with consent and in the domain that is delegated to you. And these circles are double linked. So the general circle where you have the CEO together with the managers and a delegate from the department circles, they are linked to the top circle where you find the external board members together with the CEO and a delegate from the general circle. And this is also at a lower level. So, and if there would be underneath the department circles below, there would be team circles that also each team is double linked with the department circle, the teams in that department. So this structure helps us to improve the communication, because now we have to take into account the different views in our circles and also amongst, so between circles. You also have to take into account the information of the next lower circle. Each circle has his own or her own specific domain. So you don't talk with everybody about everything. Each circle, each team has its own domain. So for example, if this would be a zoo, in the zoo you can have the department where are the giraffes, where are the primates, where are the fish, and you have insect part. And they have their own domain. They can take care of the primates and all the food stuff and everything that goes with it. But if it's about spacing, so how much space will have the primate department, or how much space or what kind of budget, this we will have to align amongst us. So you have an overall level that has the overall goal of the zoo, and where we align between the departments. And then there is a top circle where there are external board members, which make sure that you confirm with external regulations, where you, for example, have decisions on investment. If you want to add to this zoo also a leisure park with all kinds of, you see a swimming pool and so on. So if you want to extend the park, that can be a decision that's made at the top circle level, where also investors can be there as external members. So each circle has its own domain. And the double linking is as follows. You see circle 1, which let's say was this management circle or general circle, where we had the CEO with the managers of the departments. So the manager of the department goes to the lower circle as a leader of the department. He has to make sure that, or she has to make sure what we decide in circle 1 will be executed in circle 2, so that we work on this, so that we work within these budgets that are set in circle 1. But in order to make sure that the budget or whatever we decide in circle 1 as policy does confirm with the reality of circle 2, we have a representative. And that representative represents the reality or information of circle 2 in circle 1. So if we have a circle meeting at circle 1 level, there will also be a delegate next to the leadership present and will decide with consent. And so you see in Sociocracy, we have split the top-down steering from the bottom-up steering. Split in the sense that these are dispersed over 2 different functions, and it's done with by 2 different persons. And the delegate is chosen in circle 2, and the leadership is chosen in circle 1. Of course, with the representative 1 or more present that have to consent. Then we covered consent principle, we covered the circle structure, we covered the double linking between circles, and now we will cover the open election. So the delegation of function and task, who will be the leadership, who will be the delegate, who will be our person that is responsible for a certain task or function, that we will decide in the circle with consent. And it can be that we choose the person with consent for this task, or we choose, we consent the procedure, how we will come to this person. So it can also be delegated, that somebody else choose the person, but we will set criteria and we will set a procedure with consent. We will make any decision for a limited period of time. So after a time, there's a review. Also of the delegation of tasks, there will be a review. And there is a correction possible at any meeting. Because at any circle meeting, there is the possibility that people can say, I want to talk about the task we delegate to Pieter. We thought he was very good at this and this, but it turns out we have trouble with him. We have spoken with him a lot of time. We also gave him extra training, but it does not work. I want this to change, and I withdraw my consent. And then we have to talk about it in the circle, whether we continue with me in this position or whether we change that. So it's not about we choose me for 4 years like you choose your politician, and then you have to do with what he does in these 4 years. No, you can change any circle meeting. You have the possibility to correct, which makes that me, chosen by you, I will take a lot more care about explaining to you what I'm doing and about attuning with you my acts also in execution, and that I don't see it as a mandate that I'm given and now I will do what I want for these 4 years and I will tell you if I want to. So no, it's anytime. So you become very much attuned on one another. So what are learnings? And then I think we come to the question and answer. what we have learned over time, that developing a learning attitude is key. So working with Sociocracy means that you have an openness to learn, an openness to other ideas that maybe at first seem to you very stupid or very conflicting, and that you can bear with the tension, and that you see it as, what does it teach me? What can I learn from it? So this learning attitude is very important. And of course, this is not, I don't see it like if you don't have a learning attitude, you cannot work with Sociocracy, but over time, we will have to develop this together. If we want to work with it and if we want to achieve the content, we have to develop this learning attitude. Training is essential. So people, in many cases, what I've seen, they need support in order to develop these competencies. So leadership needs to develop the competence to be so as well as leaders, so that they can lead, but also can act as equivalent members of a circle. So doing the both and. It's the same with facilitators, delegates, they also need training. But I would say all the people that take part in the circle need training, because there comes a lot of old behavior that we have learned in old structures that we need to rewire, or we need to change. Good circle meetings are key to a good implementation, because if you have over time many circle meetings that are of bad quality, then you see that the interest and the motivation for people to work sociocratically declines very fast. And so good circle meetings only that they are efficient, that they are effective, that they bring results, and so on. And maintenance is needed. So it's not something you do once and then you learned it and then you're done. It's also not for me. I'm in here for 25 years. I'm certified, which means that I take part in a process and in a structure where where I do permanent education. So I get every year there is a performance review. I get measured, and I have to deal with it. I'm with people in a circle, also people that lead me. So you need to organize your maintenance, because we have learned from the past that from the start it can be it goes up very fast, steeply. Then you see a lot of results, and in 2-3 years it's in total decline. And then I hear many people say, "Oh, we abandoned it because it did not work." Yeah, in many cases it did not work. I could translate as, we lacked the competencies, but we did not know. Because I can see, as an expert in this, I can see, just with a few tweaks, or with a little training, or with a little advice, you could have overcome this hurdle, which led eventually to the abandonment of Sociocracy. Good.
Thank you, Pieter.
Yeah. Then this is an example that's for next time. Yeah, we are here.
So if you unshare your screen so we can see people.
Yeah.
Great, and I will go in the order. Esther first. Esther, what would be your question about the presentation or about Sociocracy overall?
Well, I have one question that you already know. I would like to know the differences between Sociocracy, Holacracy, and in general teal organizations. Then one thing that I missed in the presentation is that you didn't mention 3 important things that are treated in the book of Reinventing Organizations, like self-management, wholeness, and evolutionary purpose, that maybe each company can be in different stages, and not all companies will go for all at the same time, depending on the status of the company. So I would like to know how Sociocracy implement or incorporate all of these 3 points, if they are in Sociocracy as well. And then if there is any possibility to see a practice in an organization, or I mean because you have shared with us like the theory, but I would like to see a little bit more practice in life, like what you say with the circles, right? And one more is that I thought that there was no so many hierarchy. I thought that it was more horizontal distribution of power. And now I can see a lot of hierarchy here. And maybe the biggest implementation here is the feedback between one level and the other by means of these representative people. But still there is a lot of hierarchy. So I would say that this could be one of the biggest differences with holacracy or TIL. That's all.
Thank you, Esther.
There were a lot of questions, and if we come with all the people, there will be a long list. So I was thinking, should I address one question for one person at a time, and then we go around, so everybody has at least one question answered, and we can see whether we can do more.
I was gonna say the same, and then we can talk afterwards and have all these questions. We keep in touch anyway, and we can answer all that. But just take the one that you want.
The first one, the differences between
holacracy and sociocracy. I don't know whether all of you know, sociocracy dates from the 1970s, and holacracy dates, I don't know, 2000 something. Brian Robertson, he took a lot from sociocracy. I think the 4 basic rules that you see here, he took from sociocracy. I think what is the main difference? There are several, but I would say 2. First of all, consent does not govern decision making in holacracy. It's what I would emphasize. It's what I would put as an opinion, because there are many backdoors to overcome the consent principle, where the leadership or the whole person can still be in command and control. So there is not, what is really important in sociocracy is that consent governs decision making at any level. So there is not anywhere a person that can say, no, now I'm the boss. No, and in holacracy, my opinion, my view, there is. Because I read a lot about that. Leadership will have 3 criteria to see whether your paramount objection is really a paramount objection, that the person that is taking responsibility for the whole has the final say. So there I have that I see as a big difference. And the second difference is that holacracy is what we call, has a lot of filling in. So these 4 basic rules that you see, and there is a little bit more, somewhat more, but they are very open. So they don't tell you exactly how to run your meetings. They tell you a little bit how to run your meeting. But for example, in holacracy, you find a lot of distinction between strategic meeting, operational meeting, and then you have some kind of other meeting. And then they also have formats for all these meetings, and then they have formats for everything. And sociocracy, this is not the way how sociocracy looks at designing of the world. If I want to design a bridge, I need a few construction rules, but then I want to build the bridge that I need. That can be of wood or iron or everything. And if I'm going to fill it in for you, how you build your bridge, and then you build your wooden bridge. But the idea behind sociocracy is that you have a few construction rules, and within these rules, you can make anything that you want, and you can adapt it to any situation. Of course, the filling-ins that holacracy has can be very useful, but useful for the ones that want to use it. For example, I use nonviolent communication, which I find a very useful tool for communication. If there's trouble in communication, I can use it also with sociocracy in a sociocratic circle. But I will never say, if you use sociocracy, you will also have to use nonviolent communication. No, that's optional. Maybe there are other communication methods that work better in your culture. So that's also a difference between, so holacracy has far more filling-ins of how to run and do certain things, where sociocracy stays out, says, okay, these are all optional, but there might also be other ways to fill the space, so to speak, to implement it. And that's a difference. Yeah, good. Stop.
Thank you, Pieter. Esther, as we said, we do by email all your question, and we'll be able to answer all them. Paulina, what would be your question?
My question will be much more detailed, as I know Sociocracy a bit, is about the choice of the leader and for the circle. Yeah, when you are choosing the leader for the circle, you are choosing from the level 1 to the leader from the level 2 circle. And is the possibility in this method to do the consent process to the choice of the level 1 by in the circle level 2?
Yeah. Okay. So to be very short, as long as you just let's say work with these 4 basic rules, because these 4 basic rules, and they are not like words from God in stone and you have to abide them. No, they are. There's reasoning behind them why you use them. So if you want within these rules to delegate a lot of decision making, even the choose of leadership to lower circles or to an expert or to a working group, you are free to do so. But then it would. The idea of what is the let's say, you could say, constraint or advice from Sociocracy is that the responsibility to make the decision, whether to delegate it or how to organize it, lies with the next higher circle, because there are the people that have to work with the guy, or the woman that will take the task, and because also a delegate from the next lower circle is also there. So he can also see whether it is the right guy for the team, and the other people can see whether this is the right guy or a woman to give the job to, because they have to feel confident that this is the leadership that will make sure that the things they decide in their circle, that he or she will be the person also to get it implemented, and also wants to. But what you see in practice is that sometimes circles sit together. So you have the next higher circle and the next lower circle, they sit together and do a common election, or that it gets delegated to the next lower circle and they come up with a proposal that is then finally decided, or it is completely delegated. But this is all then a decision from the next higher circle, where the delegate is there. So you have your influence, you're not outside. Yeah.
Thank you, Pieter. Mark, I'll have you next.
My question is for very flat organizations. I've heard Sociocracy works for that, but I can't quite see how you would link everything together. Say a political organization or something with many, many members spread out, but you can't really have like a huge pyramid, can you? I just don't see how it goes, kind of.
Yeah. Well, let's say it depends a lot of what you want with all these people, these 1,000 members or maybe thousands of members. So, for example, the organizations I told you, I give you an example, these birth care organizations I work with, there are, in some cases, there are 60 organizations involved. Some have 1 employee, but some have thousands of employees or hundreds, so there can be a lot of people involved. But if you look at the main circle where we gather, there there are several professions, and from each profession we have 2 persons in this upper circle, and they make decisions at that level for the whole of the field. And then you get the lower circles where each of the profession has its own professional circle, and there you see the different organizations in the professions are there. And then at the next level comes all the organization, and within the organization you will, if there are a large organization like a hospital, you see all kinds of departments. So you see, this is the way how we structured this many people, hundreds of people in a circle organization. But if you look in practice what they use, many of them, they are not sociocratically structured, but they're working together, so this cooperative or this cooperation, this association, this is structured sociocratically because they want to work as professions in an equivalent way, because otherwise they start fighting, and they've seen all the problems that come from all this fighting. So that's why they wanted to be in this organization. So I would say if you have thousands of members, you're a political party. Yeah, there are. So to me, it depends what you want from your members. You want them to be active. You want them to do things. So they are in teams. They have to, or they are just members, like they pay money and they want you to do the work. Well, then you can maybe have a circle with 1,000 people, but they are just there paying money, and maybe they send 2 or 3 delegates to a next higher circle to make decisions. So, so these are some ideas that come to my mind. So this also comes back to the decision about how much hierarchy do you have, do you need to have. Sociocracy says nothing about hierarchy. It says how you construct the hierarchy. But if you have 2 layers, 3 layers, 5 or 10 layers, that's totally dependent on your process. And some processes need 10 layers of hierarchy. We are living in a cosmos which has many layers of hierarchy. So it's all to organize our life. But we are, as human beings, we can choose the many layers of hierarchy we need to organize our organization. If you look at the world right now with the COVID crisis, we cannot be with, I don't know, what are 5 billion people, or I don't know, 4 billion people, to be in one room and make decision what to do with the COVID crisis. No, it's a whole kind of hierarchy. You have the United Nations, and you get continents like European Union, and you get the countries, and within the countries you get, and so totally down to your street and to your person and your municipality telling what to do in your street and what you cannot do. So this is a whole organization. And to say, oh, these are all sitting next to one another, I don't think so. There's a lot of, but I'm not saying it has to be that hierarchy. No, but it seems that we need a certain kind of hierarchy, and that's, Sociocracy leaves open how much.
Thank you, Pieter. Elena, your question.
Yeah, hi, thank you. So there's 2 reasons why I'm here. One is that I would like to start implementing Sociocratic principles in the NGO that I'm volunteering in right now. And the second one is that eventually I would like to open my own NGO and implement it from the beginning. And what I'm noticing here is that there's a lot of resistance or absenteeism, in a way, that people don't really care about politics, especially the volunteers. They don't really care about how the organization is structured, and they just expect the leaders to tell them what to do, which is how we're actually raised up now in school, is a bit of the same. So in your experience, how is this transition between the submissive relationship with leadership and going to collaborative? And I'm just figuring, I mean,
yeah,
in my head, the facilitator has a huge role here, and
yeah. Well, I think you're right when you say the facilitator has a huge role, but I think it's more than facilitation. So I see my role when I'm there to help groups or organizations work with Sociocracy. It's more than just facilitating meetings, also having the eyes for what's happening for all these processes. And how, for example, I will give you an example. So once I was working with a circle which was part of a larger organization, and I was with people that it was our 3rd circle meeting, and we had our closing round, which we evaluate the meeting, and then the person said, all this talk here, it's a lot of bullshit. Nothing changes. We are just talking, and at the end of the day, the management will do what they want. This is just nonsense, this whole circle. It's just a bunch of crap. Because the real stuff, what needs to be changed, we never talk about that. And I said, wonderful. So what am I hearing? You are telling us that there is real stuff that we need to discuss, but we never discuss. That's a pity. That's a waste of opportunity. Next time, when we have the next circle meet, it's a pity that you tell us now in the closing round, because we would have liked to know before, but we will have a next meeting, and that the first item will be what has to change at the work floor, and you will be the first to tell us what has to be changed, and we will discuss it. He was totally like, oh. And so next time we did that. And all the people came, not only he, all the people from the work group came on, this should change, And we started to talk on it and work on it. And when we had to evaluate the 6th meeting, whether they want to work with it, and I also went to that person, and that he was still a little bit reluctant, but he said, yeah, let's do it. So, and I'm not saying this sounds like this is a very nice story, but it has not finished. It is a process, and he will have fallback, and his leadership will have fallback. And what I've seen in other cases, that some leaders get annoyed by when they hear these kinds of remarks, because they think, oh, I give you all the power, I give you all the space to open up, and then you're still complaining that nothing gets done. And they get frustrated, and they want to sack the people, and they want to stop with Sociocracy because it brings nothing and only people complaining. And I say, you see what I did? I learned it. I also had to learn it. I said, wonderful. Good, you're telling us. Finally, you speak up. I'm glad for that. Please, go ahead. We will put it on the agenda. It's not that we will just instantly do it, but good that you bring it forward, and we will make it constructive. So this is just one of the examples. And so I think, yeah, it takes time, and it also takes addressing these issues. So if you see this behavior, that you address the behavior, and that you say, what do we learn from it? What can you learn from it? What can we learn from it? And how we help each other to get to this collaborative behavior.
Thank you, Pieter. We will have 2 more questions. I have Heather. Do you have one? Are you still awake?
Yes, I'm still awake.
She's in Sydney or in Australia.
Yeah.
The thought that is coming to me, I have a question of whether you notice the possibility for ongoing success of the Sociocracy approach if there is also processes of people learning to develop themselves and their ability to communicate, to take responsibility for their own development as well? Or do you find that the structural changes themselves allow for or facilitate personal growth by listening to one another and learning in a co-learning process? So I guess I'm just wondering, you said that you use nonviolent communication, or there could be other methods. I'm just wondering if you think that there's possibility for more success if these things are done concurrently or in the beginning, or and also I guess this idea of a shared intention of the macro picture for everyone at the beginning too. Are there things that can be done that set some foundations for success? I guess that's my question.
Yeah.
Thank you, Heather.
Yeah, thank you. So what we have seen, what is the most important factor of success, if you look over the time, all these organizations that experimented it, and a lot of them also have, certainly in the beginning. So if you look at the 70s, 80s, 90s, a lot of them abandoned it also. So there was also for us a lot of learning for how are we going to make it sustainable, and that you see all that's needed to make it sustainable. I mean, make it sustainable in the sense that the tools in itself, I would say, are sustainable, but to make people work with it, it's like emancipation in itself. It's not a bad idea. It's not I see it very sustainable, but for people to make emancipation work of women, for example, well, it's still a lot of work. If you look at the Me Too things that we have, and so we are still learning how to be emancipated. So to answer your question, it is a process. And I think the most important is that the leadership, so the one with the power, is willing to learn it. So willing to also to apply it to himself, because, or herself, because that can be a very good demonstration to the others. And yeah, because in fact, the person has the power in the decision making. He or she is also the one that can make the change. So if you want to have this at home, the change will not come from your children. They may be, for example, they may be inspire you, but you will have to make the change, because otherwise your children will just run up to a wall. But you were asking, are there any method or things you can do to support this? So what we have learned from the past, and when Gerard invented this method and implemented it in his own organization, Gerard Endenburg, and he was the first that did it, then he thought, I just explain it like I explain it to you now, these 4 simple rules, and now you go back to your organizations or you go back to your team and you just implement it. It's so simple. It's not, we don't have to talk hours about it, but it turned out it was not that simple. And then he said, oh, I have to train the people. And then they got training. And then we started with training. But then we saw even after a few years that it still, it was abandoned and that the quality was sky high and then very low. So what happened? And then we say, oh, but we have to train not only the circle, but we have to train especially the leadership, the delegates, the facilitators. They have to receive extra training. And now we see that you say, oh, but it's not just one-time extra training. It should be a yearly audit, and that out of the audit comes new information, what goes well and what goes not well, and then there is further training. So it's really about education. It's learning how to do it. Like emancipation is still education and a lot of things. So yeah, it's not an easy answer. It's not a magic bullet, but I think that's real.
Thank you, Pieter. We have Jennifer, right? Would you have your question?
Hello, thank you. And I'm kind of a culmination of all of the comments I've heard so far. I am a new director to an organization that has been using the Sociocratic method for 2 years, and it's all volunteers. And so now the volunteers are changing in their roles, and some are leaving and new ones are coming in. And I'm at a point where I need to have the best understanding of sociocracy so I can train the new people coming in. So, and I don't think we're at a point where we're ready to abandon it. I think they were very frustrated, and we have managed to convince them to continue trying it and implementing it. And so we found a lot of success, but it's very difficult for someone who's been doing a different matter of governance to embrace it. And so that's where I am, and I'm here to learn as much as possible.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, very good of you to come to this, so that you as a leader, and I really mean it, it's not just oh, nice that you're here, but it's very good, because I know a lot of leaders that come in and say, oh, I know this already. I do this for many years. Yeah, I do it a little bit different. Yeah, I don't use your double link. I don't call it consent. I call it I'm very participative. I have an open door and anybody can come in. But nobody comes. Yes, it's wrong people. Yeah, they're not at the right level to come in to speak with them. So, but you are here sitting on this webinar and you want to learn. And I think that's something that we should cherish, and it's good. But yeah, I think if you're new to that organization and new to Sociocracy, I would say educate yourself, and in a group, that's even better. And I wonder whether you as leader of the organization should be the one that trains the people in Sociocracy. Whether you should choose another person in your organization with consent that does this. Because if you as a leader trains also the people, then Sociocracy becomes very much attached to you and to the leadership position, and people are unsure whether you teach me now because you're my boss, or you teach me because you are expert in Sociocracy. So I think this is a tricky position. So we do advise our clients to, if it is possible, of course, because sometimes it is not possible financially or otherwise, organization-wise, but that you find other person that will do the training, that will be your internal expert on Sociocracy. And so you can focus on leading the process, and that Sociocracy is a part of it.
Thank you, Pieter. Well, we are a little bit late, about 10 minutes past. Just know that this webinar is part of an online training course that we're doing in June. This is about theory, or what we've been saying, and theory is also very available everywhere in the world, and in web pages. It's everywhere. What we want the course to be, it's very practical. It's for you to have the theory before, and then really go and get into practice and get some goals out of that. So for the registration of the course, what I just want to do is to share with you just a way to do it. Just on our web page, the Sociocracy group web page, you can see that the online training, and you will see in that page that you have just a button about course registration and dates. You have it here, and you have it also a little bit below. That is here. So you can, if you're interested, do this registration. Most important for us as well is to have your feedback about this session. And I will write you an email personally, as I did these days, to get your feedback and to help you if you need for the registration process. With this, we are ending. We said that more questions could be answered. You have them, and we have. I will give you a way through emails to do that. We have a nice method to be able to have you in the space, so we can really interact with one another and answer all your questions. I have a message. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, everyone, to be here. Thank you, Pieter, for your presentation and the answers of all these questions. And we keep in touch. I will send you emails.
Yes, and please send us your questions. So you will receive an answer, because I feel a little bit. I feel I cannot answer anything here. We need more time, but I'm confident that we will find a way. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye bye.
Bye now. Bye bye now.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.